Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to the Content Amplified podcast. PJ, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks, Ben. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. PJ, just to set the stage, maybe you could introduce yourself for a minute or two, talk about your background, your specialties in marketing, kind of your passions in marketing, and then we can dive into the subject for today.
Yeah, happy to do it. Most of my career has been agency side. I was working at an agency called 97th Floor for about 7 years. Did a lot of that middle ground between SEO and content marketing. I was working in a good groove with a lot of like enterprise size clients that they were perfect because they knew SEO was valuable and they had the resources, they understood the timelines, and so we were able to just crank with some really cool brands over there. But like all good agency stories, I got poached by by a client and had been doing some fun stuff in house for a while, where um, I also run a content team, but again through the lens of SEO, right? And so I'd say my skill set is right now kind of a three-way Venn diagram, and one of those circles being SEO, the other circle being content, specifically like editorial. Like I can, read through written content and make it exceptional. And then the third one being artificial intelligence and kind of that thin overlap where those three connect, which is funny because I feel like a lot of SEOs and a lot of editors are stressing about AI, and I'm like, bring it! Like it's such an asset. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and where I feel like I can, speak most to.
Love it. Very cool. So the subject for today is extremely timely, and not in the fact that it's like only going to be relevant today. It's timely in the fact that this is going to be relevant from today for forever into the future. And I think a lot of people hear content about this, but I love PJ's insights on this subject, very actionable insights. Today, we're going to talk about AI, and more specifically, how do I scale SEO driven content using AI? So PJ, take it away. What are your initial thoughts on AI? How have you started using it? How has it benefited your system for creating SEO driven content?
Yeah, well, your audience of marketers will be familiar with doing more with less, right? How many times have we been told that in our career? That and I feel like with the advent of AI, executives now actually have like a good reason to tell us that. Whereas before it was kind of like we would just be like, dude, seriously? Like if I would, I could. And now the onus is really on us to do it, right? Because AI has opened up a lot of doors. Like as fast and as hard as you want to run, like there's something there for it. So with that mindset of like how can I do more with less, like again my background is SEO and editorial, where those two worlds collide. Like I do really well at building content driven search strategies, and so like everyone, been playing with you mostly chat gpt for quite some time, and I have been trying to figure out how can I get it to sound like me? Like I have built some really great quality standards with my team. We have a lot of standard operating procedure documents. We talk about tone and voice and format, and there's this sort of je ne sais quoi of how we do things, right? And so I built a lot of that out. And as I've been playing with a lot of AI, usually through ChatGPT, I would always run up against this wall of like, how, like, listen to me, like, do it like this, do it like this, and you could, there's a lot of great prompts that are, I don't need to talk about that. A lot of us know a lot how to do prompting, but like what I was missing, it wasn't a prompt. It was like I had books basically. I have, about 100 pages of Google Docs of like if you could just read this, we'd be set. And that's when I discovered Claude. So Claude is an AI through Anthropic. And immediately, what's nice about that is OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT. So many AI products are built off of OpenAI. Like everyone and their mom and her dog and that dog's roommate, like everybody is doing it off of the OpenAI framework, right?
Yep.
And what I like about Anthropic is that it's another player. Another big wow factor is, um, with ChatGPT, you can really discern if it was written by a robot that uses a lot of words like alternatively, in conclusion, summing things up, wrapping it all up. And Claude doesn't do that a lot. So again, the terminology, I might use Anthropic and Claude synonymously. I'm wrong to do that. OpenAI is like Anthropic. Claude is like ChatGPT. So Claude is the model that I've really liked. I've run it through AI checkers more times than not. It passes as human written content. So there's a lot of reasons to like that. But the biggest reason for me has been that you can attach PDFs to it. Now, ChatGPT 4 has caught up to this. So I'll full disclaimer, I haven't tried it on ChatGPT 4 yet, but for all those other reasons, I still prefer Claude. And what's nice is you can basically upload your tone, your brand guidelines. You can even upload examples of articles, and basically say, here's the front part of the process, and here's the back part of the process, and read what happens from A to Z. Now I'm going to give you a keyword, and we're going to crank. Um, so I'll pause there. I am happy to go more into detail, but I'm not sure if you have any questions or thoughts
No, for
before I
sure.
get really nerdy with it.
No, I love it. So, as you're talking through this, I've spent a lot of time with GPT, things like that. When you're training these models, how long did it take before you felt like you were starting to get pretty good results? And
Mm.
earlier we were talking, as time went on, you've refined the process where you figured out, how do I drastically reduce the amount of editing, things like that. So maybe talk us through your actual editing process. It's not a matter like you're not, I really appreciate this about you. It's not prompt, article, publish.
Right.
It is a full thought out process to create as much value as possible, as on brand as possible. What's the editorial process? And maybe if you could share, how did you refine that so that it was, a fraction of the time, like you were telling me earlier?
Yes. Yeah. So with our editorial process, really it comes down to knowing your values as a brand. And I feel like I don't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Just doing what AI gives you is not going to get you very far, right? So where this all started, where the editorial process involving AI was like, okay, how can I find my blue ocean here? A blue ocean, of course, requires that you have something new to add to the equation. If all you're doing is giving ChatGPT a prompt and a keyword, uh, you're not going to rank. I mean, maybe if you're Forbes and you've got a very high domain authority, like you can get away with drivel. And frankly, a lot of top ranking sites do pump out drivel. But there's something to be said for being novel with what you give it on the front end. So I started editing this process down when I realized, like, I could create an amazing first prompt, an amazing second prompt, and really I was finding myself, so our articles, just without AI, before AI was even created, our articles, from our quality standards, would take about a day and a half to write, for one of my writers. And it got to like, and I'm the SEO, I'm churn and burn. Like, I'm the kind of guy that's like, give me a B minus and get it out the door, like, let's get to the next one. And our CEO and founder was very big on, no, everything has to be an A plus, and I don't care how long it takes. So I understand that most people don't take a day and a half to write stuff, but that's just what it came down to with us. And so after getting some good prompts down, I got the process down from a day and a half to about 4 or 5 working hours. It was about 30 to 45 minutes of prompting uh, and refining that, and then another 3 to 4 hours with just edits. Um, what I've been able to produce now, I just did one this morning and timed it. I haven't timed it before. So again, before it was taking 4 to 5 hours from start to finish. The one I did this morning, I was done in 56 minutes.
which is incredible. A day and a half
Right.
to 56 minutes.
Yeah, a day and a half to 56 minutes. Pretty darn great. And so what is, I mean, I don't want to take the words from you, but I can talk about how I did that.
Yeah, I want 100%. So like that's the question. So if you had recommendations from your experience that marketers could use today, what were the most impactful things you did from the day and a half to the 56 minutes? Like if you could list out the things you've learned, just some of the biggest tips that people could utilize, the
Mhm.
ability for them to be more efficient, I think would be extremely valuable. So what are the top things that you've seen?
So first of all, and this is true with Anthropic or the OpenAI framework, is that it's inconsistent. If you type in, write me an article about XYZ, I mean, you could have you and your intern and your coworker, all three of you could press go at the same time, and you'll get different articles on
Yep.
every single device. Like so, so it's very inconsistent. And so how do you beat that? Because you don't just want consistency; you want consistency in your brand voice. You want consistency to look like your articles. To actually produce something novel, and the novelty isn't coming from AI. It's coming from me when I develop that first prompt. So that's a big thing, is realize that like consistency doesn't exist on its own. You have to give it that.
Yep.
And so the way that I have found that is by training it extensively. So there's about 5 documents. So Claude limits you to 5 documents, at least on the free plan. I haven't checked if there's limits on the paid one, but it limits you to 5 PDFs per message. So I mean, you can do multiple messages and multiple PDFs, which I have ended up doing, but there's about 5 that really make sense. Number one is going to be your mission as a company and your brand values and your voice. So what I have found, if that sounds intimidating for anyone to write, what I've done is I've just taken our boring, like, our core values and our about page and added my own stuff. And I've given it to Claude and said, hey, I'm trying to write something to teach you how to write for me. So
Yep.
here's my messy draft. Now you spit it back to me and tell me what works. And that's been real, like, so that's document number one, is basically your about.
Yeah.
The second document is basically your quality standards. Um, I have different names for this. I call them standards of excellence. But when I
Hmm.
talk to Claude, I usually just say these are our quality standards. This is the blanket statement. It's a pretty long document. Mine's about 5 or 6 pages of like, hey, this is in a lot of detail. Here's why our articles are world class.
Yep.
So that's number two. Number three is going to be, so not every article on your website will look the same. I found that most websites have between 4 to 6 different types of articles. And so you literally break down, for example, like, we've all seen articles that are basically definition articles. And I hate to be, belittle the SEO craft, but there's a lot of articles. It's like intro, what is keyword, benefits of like we've all seen that
Yeah.
stuff. And you know it still ranks. So until Google starts favoring something else, that's what we're going to do. So creating a playbook of here's the anatomy of what that is, and that's a very deep article, and with sorry, a document, and within that document, I also give it, and here are 5 examples of content we've written that a human wrote. So like you can't start this without doing it right yourself.
Yeah.
Here are 5 articles in a doc, formatted like these are A+ articles. Read them, study them, follow that format. Um, the next document is basically like an SEO methodology document where you're
Very
saying,
cool.
hey, here's how SEO works. And because I think Claude and really like any AI is just like, oh yeah, keywords. So teach it how SEO works, and then finally a headline document. I just there's a lot. Really, honestly, there's an article that I've used a lot from Copy Blogger that's like magnetic headlines. I just copy and pasted that into a Google Doc, saved it as a PDF, gave it to Claude, and said, "Hey, teach yourself how to write good headlines." Um, so the documents is a big piece. The final thing, and this will be very quick, is once you have those documents, don't just say write an article. Okay, hold its hand the entire time.
Yeah.
And usually that's you've read all this stuff. Start with an outline. And what I love about it is when you press like enter, that like Claude is thinking for like 2 minutes before it responds. So it's like, oh, thank goodness you're reading this like 100 pages of stuff that I gave you.
Yeah, which is it's a good point because when I use ChatGPT, I'm like, you wrote this way too fast. Did you like,
Yep.
including like I gave you a massive transcript and I asked you to summarize it and you started doing it immediately. Like, did you actually consume the content?
Right.
So it's kind of refreshing to see that, even if it's fake. Like props, Claude engineers. If you're just straight up like, we can do it immediately, but we're going to put a little 2-minute delay in there, depending on how much
Right.
documents to make you feel good, props, because it makes you feel good.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so really, I don't need to walk through the rest of it. If you've done anything with AI, make it right in. I guess the last thing I'll say is ask it to write it in sections. Do not ever ask AI to write an entire article. Say, do the intro, then do the next section, then do the next section. And then if you want a full complete thing at the end of your document, say, okay, good. Now take all your sections, give them back to me in one single, response. But yeah, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's been so fruitful.
That's awesome. So you actually go and say, okay, hey, let's create an outline for this article. Do you create that outline or does Claude create that outline?
I tell Claude to create it.
And then you can edit and fix the outline. Then you go line item by line and say, okay, let's write this section. And then you go
Yeah,
through that.
Yep, very true. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, this is super helpful. Again, I think that there's going to be a lot of conversations about AI, but I think this is such good tactical advice for, I love the numbers, a day and a half to 56 minutes. I think there's
Right.
a lot of value there. And I'm curious, we'll have you back on as soon as you get it under 30 minutes. We're going to have you back on. And I want to hear even the next things, but I think that's a wonderful, wonderful experience and wonderful stuff. Clearly, you know what you're talking about. PJ, how can people find you? How can they connect with you? How can they network with you to continue the conversation or work with you?
So the best place to chat with me is pjhowland.com. It's PJ like pajamas, HOWLAND.com. You can learn a little bit more and just about what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a product and a service that I'm really on fire about building it out for other companies. Again, good fits are those that understand that SEO takes a little bit of time, that want exceptional content, and just have the resources to just get after it.
I love it. Awesome. Well, PJ, thank you so much for the time, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.